Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Welcome Disruption. Today we're joined by Michael Moye, the National Account Executive for WelcomeHome CRM, and he's going to explore the bold and innovative ways that senior living salespeople can increase their occupancy and improve their conversions by leveraging the CRM. You don't want to miss this. Hello, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us on Welcome Disruption. I am so thrilled to have you here with us today. Can you share how you got here, literally, into senior living and WelcomeHome as the CRM?
Yeah, appreciate it, Adrienne. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. As always, with conversations with you, they're always fun, eventful, and I love talking shop with you. So the honor is all mine for coming onto the podcast. But yeah, how I got here, like many other people's stories, it kind of just is very lucky. I was working in sports marketing before this. So you think about like the transition from sports marketing into senior living, you're like, how the heck did you get from point A to point B? But if you know me on the conference circuit, or if you've got, through my time at WelcomeHome, you probably know that I'm a big sports fanatic. I'm a huge sports nut. I do like my Oregon Ducks. We are, Ducks are flying together right now. We're doing well in the college football playoffs and everything. But I loved everything about sports in terms of just like the team camaraderie, the team continuity, just a very competitive person in general. But it's like when you work in sports, you can sometimes lose the passion behind it. And I was just kind of getting burnt out on just the role in being so fully immersed in sports all the time. So I wanted to take a kind of like a step back and figure out, what's this next life pivot? Where is it going to take me? Where does God have me? And, I, looking back at it, I probably would have done this a little bit differently, but I reached out to a recruiter, and the recruiter actually, after they did a really good job with discovery on me, my likes, interests, all this stuff, and we can talk more about good discovery later on. But because that recruiter did such a fantastic job getting to know who I was and how I like to kind of quote sell, they actually, they gave me an opportunity, or they showed me an opportunity within senior living. So there's a couple other technology companies and then senior living. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way. Senior living, that's just, I can never see myself. But she was like, it just seems like you have a kind of an empathetic side to yourself, but you also are, a hunter type of personality. So I think that they would mesh really well together. Fast forward to that interview, I just kind of fell in love. I started working with Thrive Senior Living. Big shout out to them. Love the whole team there. My boss was Michelle Anderson at the time, and I still talk to her today, to date. But yeah, I kind of got just like a really lucky introduction into the space. Fell in love with it, and from being in the community to now working on the tech side, I couldn't never imagine working in any other space. It's been phenomenal.
It really is exciting. And I think one of the things that I love when we connect is that we do have a 360 kind of on the experience of senior living, from the tech side and also from the marketing side and also from the sales and experience side. So I absolutely love that. For those who aren't super familiar with WelcomeHome, will you walk us through a little bit about what makes WelcomeHome such a fantastic service to the senior living industry?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key attractors, or the most attractive thing that I found in WelcomeHome, was the ease of use behind what we do for sales directors. So in short, it's a CRM, and it's designed specifically for the senior living industry. So it's very niche. It's very thoughtfully and curated, made for the senior living sales and marketing directors. And when you're in the role as a sales director, you don't really, so it's very easy to get like very doubled down and narrow-sighted with what you're doing, right? Like you're just giving this tech stack and you're like, well, this is what's been given to me. I've got to make the best of it to my abilities and just keep, head down and keep driving and move-ins and, increasing occupancy and all that good stuff. But I found out about Welcome Home when I was at a community, and actually this CEO, John Larisha, reached out to me. He slid into my DMs and
I love that.
yeah. And he was like, hey, wanted to see if you had any interest in, looking at the product, looking at the platform. He did bring up the fact that I did ignore him on that first couple of DMs. So he still gives me a hard time about that. But I fell in love with it because it's super easy to use. It's super intuitive, and I'm sure we can talk more about it. And I don't want this to be too much of a promotional, but it's so hard to be a sales director and to spend time outside the community and learn about your residents. And so anything that you can do to automate and create a less, like just a frictionless process for the sales team, I think you can get better outcomes from, occupancy wise, but also residents that you're trying to attract as well. But that's how I found out about Welcome Home, and that's a little bit about it.
I typically am very CRM agnostic. We work with a lot of different CRMs at Adage Marketing Group. And in the course of since 2007 or so, when I hit the scene in senior living, it's been an evolution of watching the CRM products expand, grow, enhance, combine. And one of the things that I really appreciated, and I always share this about Welcome Home, is I understand that you understand the senior living process because of how the onboarding experience works. Mm-hmm. Of all of the CRM transitions, because that is such a yucky word in most organizations, CRM transition. But of all of the CRM transitions that I've done, I felt the most supported during my Welcome Home transition. And I really appreciated kind of a lot of the preset opportunities for, those workflow automations, like you mentioned, being able to customize those into the client's brand voice and really do a great job of supporting our sales teams, because we do give them a lot of conflicting demands. Go out and do outreach, do home visits, do follow-ups, hit that phone. How many emails have you sent? That's a very stressful thing. And the more intuitive we can make the tools that they have to use to a part of the process and not a second step like charting, mm-hmm. I think is a huge win. And I've seen that, there's some integrations coming as well, which are the ones we've experienced with Waypoint or with Rubric. Welcome Home's been very open and built in those functionalities that our clients really needed, because as the person doing reporting or the person responsible for strategy, I think it's really essential that we have the right data in the right places. But from your perspective, I mean, what are the biggest challenges you're seeing? Because you are out a lot on the conference circuit and talking to team members. What are you seeing?
Yeah. And well, first I want to go back to, but thank you for the compliments on the data migration and the ongoing support. We definitely strive to make it a best-in-class experience. And no one ever believes me when I say it's super easy I don't think that people should, because of historical and legacy experience from switching from a lot of different CRMs. But I appreciate that. And I think from what I'm seeing in the space, what's very challenging for tech adoption is the data migration. I think it's a fear of, I think change is hard. It's resistant across the board. It doesn't matter if you're 5 or 95. The idea of changing any type of way, like I literally just updated my iOS to the 18, and I hate it so much with a passion. The Photos app in particular, I don't know if I need to talk to somebody at Apple, specifically. I'm happy to, but I think just from the migration, how can we make it simple for them? But I think and you're in the weeds and you're in the communities, I think we're seeing more and more come online. And I know that, I've been going to conferences pretty hard for the past 3 years, and we keep talking about this boomer, the baby boomers, and it's going to explode and all this stuff is going to happen. But I also from being in the community, I saw, 10 communities within a 5-mile radius, competing with our services. So I think that was a big struggle of just huge market saturation. I think for me, taking that, because you can't really control that, right? Like if you're in the community and you're having to deal with 10 other communities, you just have to make do with you have to find your own value proposition. Like, how are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to be able to give a really curated experience? And those are buzzwords, and we can talk a little bit more on how to do that. But how can that's not really a controllable. What you can control is how we are retaining our team members. But I'm actually thinking, I think that retention gets talked about a ton in conferences, but I think it's actually from a positive standpoint. I think we're doing a better job at doing that. The more consistently that I'm talking with our operators, and I love this phraseology from some of the VPs and CEOs, is that I want to see the products, I want to see the tools that we can implement, but I'm not going to be the ones that using it. I can figure out from a reporting standpoint, I can figure out other ways to get what I need. I want my team to be more efficient. Like, I want to empower them to do that. And I think the more that we can focus on that, the more that we're going to retain, the more that you're going to build continuity across the community. And the reality is people from a perspective standpoint really do care about what people are saying in a community, right? Like, oh, they've had 5 executive directors in the past 5 years. Like, how do I know if, like, also, what is the pro forma? I'm seeing a lot of more educated buyers. Like, what's the pro forma of this? Like, are you guys meeting that? Are you meeting NOI? Because they know that the more profitable you are, the more that you're able to give back to the residents. So I think focusing on that retention piece is crucial, and definitely a challenge, but something that's positive that I'm seeing heading in the right direction.
I've gotten that sense too, that operators have kind of come into their own in understanding that culture equals retention. Understanding what the front line is doing equals better outcomes. I don't think we need undercover boss necessarily to come in and show us, but I think that having a decision-making process that looks at situation by situation, each community, rather than this is the tech solution for the portfolio, makes a lot of sense. And I 100% agree with you. You can't control the competition in your market, but you can control the experience you deliver. And that is where I think it's beneficial to have institutional knowledge. So again, going back to retention, the more this person knows and loves this community and can tell stories about it, the better our sales outcomes are going to be. And the more enabled that person is to be able to document what they're hearing in return within the CRM in an easy way, where it's capturable, where it's leverageable. I think having as a marketing partner, our goal is to dig into those CRMs notes and find those common themes. Are we hearing a lot about pets? Are we hearing a lot about veterans? And being able to do that kind of really targeted segmentation that, again, enhances that delivery of experience to the prospective resident, but takes some of the lift off of the sales team. So having those parts and pieces working together, and having the actual end user designing it, describing it, detailing it, I think is a game changer.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think from a first impression standpoint, I think that one thing that we can capitalize is how many first impressions that there actually are in the sales cycle. So you think about the first time that they're calling in, what does that first, or I guess really before even that, what is the community saying from a Google review standpoint? What is the user experience on the website? Which, kudos to you guys at Adage. That new website is incredible. If you guys haven't seen that. But yeah, how are the users interact, or how are the prospects interacting on the website all the way up to the sales? So there's one first impression. There's the next one. They come into the community, your next first impression. And then how much information are we getting on that first one? So how can we create that full buyer profile, which you love I know we talked about last time. It's just like, how can we create the most comprehensive buyer profile? That way we can truly understand who is actually coming in and interested in our community. And then if so, are there unique things that we can really tell and refine on? Are we getting a lot of veterans? Are we getting a lot of people that are big into arts and culture or sports fanatics? That way you can start to retarget some of that marketing and waste less on the digital side, and then, increase ROI from, hey, I know exactly who I'm trying to, because I know this kind of sounds, we might be talking about this later on. I think inclusive environments are crucial, but at the same rate, you do not want to compromise the actual community if the residents aren't getting along with one another. And I think that's a missing piece and missing ingredient. Is great, you've got 100% occupancy, but how active or how engaged are your prospects? I think it's a snowball effect, and it can really help sales cycles if the teams or the prospects are all interacting. And the difference between a tour that a person does when there's 50 or 20 people involved with an activity compared to crickets. And again, crickets, I know, like, it happens, right? You gotta, and you have to be prepared for that to happen. But I think it makes it much easier of a sell when you're like, oh my gosh, these people are hype. I love it.
There's a vibe here.
Yeah.
So no, and let's just call it a vibe check. So I love what you've pointed out. So for us, when we do market research projects for our partners, we start with just the same way a family would, with documenting that online experience. How hard was it to find the call to action button? What happened after I submitted the form? How long did it take to get an automated email, a phone call? And we're time stamping these things.
Yeah.
So if we're really comparing ourselves to the competitors, let's compare on all key fronts. And to your point, data is driving a lot of decisions. So let's make sure we have the right data. Let's be sure we're well positioned within a market. So then when we do our in-person analysis, which me and data, we have a really structured methodology that I think sets it apart from any of the market research I've seen elsewhere. But that in-person experiential analysis, walking through the community and taking note of how many people are engaged in activities, or asking the sales director questions around who is typically attending these events. Is it, a large group of residents? Which leads me to the second part of the sales cycle, is really that resident ambassador group. Do you have happy family members and happy residents to whom you can direct this person for a peer-to-peer advice?
Mm-hmm.
The most successful communities that I've seen have a solid resident referral rate. They close at sometimes 2 and 3 times the speed of other referrals or lead sources. And there's a clear viability in a peer-to-peer review, which is why that dark funnel experience and cleaning up those Google reviews is so essential. And when I say cleaning up, let me just make sure that I'm stating for the record, what I mean is replying to every single Google review with your best customer service. That person may never interact with you again.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone who sees that review will see your response. And we have a blog that we did, I want to say in like 2021, on the dark funnel. And, kind of walking through that as you go incognito and check yourself out. How long does it take? And even from a retention and employee perspective, we've worked with clients where they were frustrated with their recruitment results, and come to find out their application wasn't feeding in. Right? Yeah. So there was data accumulating. There was just no one receiving it. So leveraging the data that's available and making sure that you've looked at the entire resident experience. A lot of that is not done from the outside very often. We get a little nose blind to our communities. And we get a little stuck in our perception of our competitors. So I think that updating the market research on a regular basis is helpful. And as you onboard new salespeople, it helps them to know their market as well.
Yeah, big time. And I've seen some funny things on the Google review front. I've seen some, just to kind of add to that, respond to them, but don't and I know this is not like rocket science or this is not revolutionary, but like I've seen some wild Google review responses. Don't be passive aggressive, like on your
Don't be
responses.
aggressive either.
Or aggressive. Like I've seen some actually like community responses that are like completely blame shifting. And I'm like, it's probably not the right approach. And, I think trying to prove that, it's a cool human to human thing. Like you can make it more humanized that you're responding as opposed to it's just like a Google review, or like it also shows that you care about both the positive and the negatives. So choose wisely how
Well,
you
that's where
respond.
public relations comes in, right? So again, that's something that with our clients, we monitor their Google reviews. When one comes in, we support them in drafting that response.
Good.
Trust and believe, we've had some ringers. I think our case study on Google reviews was done during COVID. So you can imagine how much fun Google review management was back then.
I'm
But
sure you
ultimately,
got some wild ones.
yeah, ultimately, family members really are a huge, huge part of making the decision for senior living. And with them playing such an incredible role, I think they have a higher expectation of speed to lead than anyone. So when it comes to, family members playing a role in the buying process, Google reviews are where they start. But can you help me understand the ways that Welcome Home can be leveraged to enhance their experience kind of throughout that process, even into onboarding at the community?
Yeah, I think understanding how important it is from a collective decision-making process, that's why I think it's really not a lot different than a traditional B2B type of sell. When you think about getting, buy-in, for me at Welcome Home, I like to be talking to the CEOs, the VPs, the sales directors, and I think it just makes the sales cycle that much simpler when you can talk and get feedback in real time across the board. And it's no different than the way that you're doing it with the, hard-nosed, pig-headed, son, and then your scared daughter or daughter-in-law that's, really timid to make this decision. So I think understanding how important it is to get that collective buy-in and that family alignment, and not really being afraid to ask questions, right? Of, hey, we just did this tour. It seemed like we really hit on X, Y, and Z of what, Miss Smith, your mom was trying to look for, kind of reiterating that. But then at the end of the tour, when you're face to face and you might be doing that last sit and you're just kind of doing a debrief, asking a tough question is like, hey, it seems like you're doing a ton right now. Are you doing this by yourself, or do you have anybody else that's, helping you with this evaluation process? And again, you can word it like, I might not have the best phraseology on the words or the questions, but like really try to embody like what is natural for you to say, but don't shy away from that question, because that question is going to bring out a couple of different things. It's going to bring out who else is a part of this decision making process. So where are you on that Venn diagram? And then the other one is hurdles that you're going to immediately get a reaction. It's like, yeah, I had to come in by myself because, I'm kind of doing this in secret. Well, that's great information to know, because if you're doing this in secret, you know that probably that process of helping your mom make this decision is going to be difficult, and you need to figure out some more barriers. If they do know about it, who else is making that decision? And also, I know this is kind of going in a long-winded roundabout, so hopefully there's some nuggets here. But when you think about this generation that is moving in, and this is not, I hope this is not taken poorly at all, but I would say more often than not, it is women that are searching, and it's for typically their mom or their mother-in-law. I would say that's a bulk. I'm not trying to generalize this too much, but when you think about the amount of decisions that mom, that actual resident has probably made in her life, probably not a ton has been her decision. Again, not to get too culturally going into the norms, but this is a monumental decision. So asking the question is like, does your mom typically make a lot of decisions? Like, what's the last big decision that she's made? And sometimes it's been a while since they've actually made something that it's like, at this juncture, it's it can help the pendulum swing this way or the other. So finding out how to ask those tougher questions, figuring out family alignment, and then from a welcome home perspective, we can help a ton with the automation. So making sure that we're following that sales framework of asking the right questions at the right time and prompting that. We also do, I think it's actually kind of awesome, it's the talk to listen ratio is even understanding if we're talking too much, which I'm probably doing right now. So I need to take my own advice. But the talk to listen ratio, are we talking too much? Are we listening enough? Are we asking good enough questions? Can we search that transcription? How can we refine the questions that we're asking? To make sure we are getting that buyer buy-in throughout the sales process. So I think automation, sentiment analysis, and a lot of the real-time reporting, we're helping our sales directors in that real time.
That is incredible. And I love the deep dive on the multi-decision maker sale. Again, I think we blogged about that before as well. I'll link that with the podcast. The multi-decision maker sale, I've found, if in that, you said the second sit, I love that. In the first sit, before we stand, if we do a really good job of getting them to tell us their story, and I know that I feel like story is really getting diluted, over time. Let me be clear. If this person is really listening, if the sales director is really listening, and we ask questions around doctor's appointments, what's a typical day look like? When did they get married? These stories end up coming out. Oh, she was married before. I have a stepbrother. Good information to know.
Right.
Or I'm doing this in secret. That second sit might include, here's some tips on how to talk to your parents. So one of the things that I always circle back to is Jeff Bezos said, your brand is what people say about you after you leave the room. And I think that when we talk about the in-person experience at a community, we're not putting enough emphasis on, one, how emotionally distressed that person is, which actually decreases our reading level, our Fleisch reading score, and puts our entire body in a semi-activated state. Mm-hmm. And the way that I describe that in my trainings is when the fight or flight is on, the DVR recorder is off. Mm-hmm. So until we've got that person in a calm state and we can really pull that story out, we're only getting top level anyway, which leads me to, what is their takeaway? So when they leave and they do come back to homeostasis, what materials have you given them? How actionable are they? Are they easy to read, easy to use, easy to implement? Did you give them any materials? Because rarely do I walk out of a mystery shop empty-handed, but man, it would be nice if they really went into their toolbox and pulled out something customized, mm-hmm. rather than that standard, here's your packet and here's your cookie, which also, how many of them don't even have a cookie, right? That signature treat that they take, or whatever it is, a cup of tea. But it's really, those are the things that we remember. Those are the memorable experiences.
Yeah, no, that's 100% it. And where you're kind of going back to the sales framework and sales process and discovery. It's like, the reason why your follow-up stinks is because you did poor discovery. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you're saying, I'm just following up, I'm just checking in, is simply because you didn't collect enough information on that front end. And I love the way that you put it. So it's like, when they come home and they come back to that homeostasis, they're calm, they're collected, they're probably exhausted, but like, how are they kind of processing everything? What do you think that they're like? What are their actionable takeaways? Well, even in that follow-up to them, how can you quell their fears or their anxieties in a more, instead of just doing it all at once, because you can't do it all at once, but how can you make it a linear, or even not a linear process of, hey, these are the things that I've learned, and kind of do it as like your own sales drip campaign, right? We talk about our sale or marketing drip campaigns. We can make those super complex, and you can have all these different branches. We should see that no differently than the way that the sales process works. Once they go from that marketing qualified lead to the sales qualified lead, it should work in branches. And I think a lot of people tend to see the sales process as more linear, and you shouldn't, because everyone is so different. But you can easily customize. And even if it's like, oh no, even if it's not just the general cookie and here's your packet, we can still make it like, here's, I guess, somewhat pre-templated. I'm struggling to find some words. Like you can have like your 5 things. Learn your prospects, learn what their typical challenges are. Here's the buckets that they typically fall in. And here's the pre-templated stuff that we can provide in terms of actionable stuff. And it already shows you that it's even more personalized. But then once you provide that, then that day 2, day 4, day 30, day 60 of follow-up, you can continue to interweave what you've collected in terms of your knowledge about that person, your creative follow-up, and make them feel known, valued, trusted, all of that through the process. Because I don't think it's ever a one-time, oh, I nailed that tour, we're good, we've got a deposit. Right. Sometimes that one tour deposit is the worst thing that can happen to you, because you can sit on your laurels and you can kind of take it for granted that they still might be evaluating and getting a better experience elsewhere.
Absolutely. Well, they say to be known is to be loved. And I've loved our time together today. If there's one final takeaway that you would share, Michael, what would it be?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is taking everything a step at a time. Like just really trying to refine your sales process and look at your numbers and try to really understand your numbers and how that impacts, the outcomes that you're trying to drive. So learning your conversion ratios, learning your average lead volume, how long does it typically take to generate some of these move-ins. But the most important part of that is just understanding your prospect and doing deep discovery and trying to nail that first impression every single time from start to finish. Every
time. It's all about those first impressions. Well, I think this is definitely going to require a part 2. I cannot wait to reconnect. And we'll stay in touch as we jump into 2025 and look at all of the cool things that Welcome Home has rolling out.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Adrienne.
Thanks, Michael.
All right.